What's up, everybody? Bootsy Greenwood here, coming to you from a balcony on the Gulf of Mexico. It's a beautiful day. I've been talking a lot about reality transurfing and some of the ideas in that book and how those relate to a lot of the modern ideas floating around in self-help and self-development, idea of boundaries, and particularly the idea of unconditional love is what I want to talk a little bit about today. I'm really of the belief that we're really here to experience and understand, or at least attempt to understand unconditional love, to experience unconditional love, to basically figure out a way to accept it into our reality as much as humanly possible. To me, a lot of the social conditioning and a lot of the ideologies that we encounter on a day-by-day basis are diametrically opposed to the idea of unconditional love. But I really want to be clear and say that unconditional love does not mean being a doormat. It does not mean being a complete pushover. It does not mean that you just comply with everything. The idea of boundaries is still very pertinent, relevant, and important. We can only really share as much as we can gather, and it's important to really start with ourselves. Unconditional love starts internally, and I believe it overflows. It comes from within and begins to overflow into other areas of our lives. So maybe, and this is really given to me from somewhere else, and I'm very grateful for this tip. Maybe instead of the idea of boundaries, maybe we could have a little bit more discretion. Maybe we could have a little bit more, there's like a biblical word that I'm trying to think of right now, like a discernment, I think is what it is, right? Like discernment. We definitely need to have boundaries. We definitely need to understand who we are, to embrace our credo, and to understand that, and that never allow that infrastructure to be taken over or our values to be lost. That's what causes a rift within our own self-worth, right? We need to have our own boundaries for our own sake. They're really not for anybody else. And the idea of unconditional love is not this surrendering to any old whim of anybody else, but surrendering to the will and the value and the credo that you have within your own psyche, your own mind, your own set of values, your credo. Unconditional love is a very interesting concept. It's difficult to explain. It's hard to put into words. It's hard to define. It's hard for people to understand. We all have different blueprints of love and what we perceive love to be, either in a romantic or a platonic sense. And a lot of our ideas and paradigms about love come directly from that place. And unconditional love just so happens to transcend all those things. It's truly the most undeniable, the most appealing, the most seductive even quality, even though it's not really meant to be seductive. I'm going to tell you guys a couple of stories about my experience with unconditional love and just a little bit about what I've experienced emotionally, right? This is very subjective stuff, but on the one hand, you have unconditional love as this all-encompassing, cradling, loving, maternal, in my experience, sort of nurturing being. And then on the other hand, you have a very cold and indifferent, objective understanding of natural law and what exactly is going on. And those are both a strong part of what I believe the makeup of unconditional love to be. I've experienced these expressions or personalities of unconditional love, you could say, couple of different ways, and what I've noticed is that they're not only both conducive, but they belong together. So understanding this idea of discretion, or this idea of discernment, and that every case is going to be slightly different, how you need to alter your behavior based on your own internal set of standards and values, what your credo is. Your behavior is not always going to follow the script, so to speak, where you're like, well, this person calls me 10 times and I'm never going to answer the phone because I need to implement a boundary. It's like, no, that's not quite it, right? Like, you need to have discretion, understand. Maybe you answer one of those calls and you let the rest go to voicemail, but on a case-by-case basis, you have enough discernment, discretion, understanding of the situation and practice that you're able to calibrate and adjust your behavior based on what the situation calls for each time, coming from a place of unconditional love. So it may not always be the same boundary, so to speak, but those boundaries will stay in place as you shift your behavior in order to accommodate what the situation calls for. Unconditional love, again, a mystery, but a beautiful and amazing force, power. I don't even know what to call it, but I do believe it. Maybe the people who are enlightened, they understand unconditional love at a very deep level. I do think that's what we're here to learn, what we're here to face. We're here to understand as best we possibly can unconditional love. And when we do that, it starts from the inside and it comes out into an expression that forms its own boundaries, its own protection from that place. And it doesn't rely on techniques. It doesn't rely on neuro-linguistic programming. It doesn't rely on, playing games with people in order to get their attention and affection. It just oozes out of you as a natural byproduct of connection to source, understanding and surrendering to that higher power, and staying true to your own credo, your own morals, your own essence and ideology. So from there, those are your boundaries. They're pretty cut and dry. It's not something that you have to establish or push onto someone else. So follow your credo, follow your own ideas of what is right for you, and then as long as you stay true to that, you don't have to worry about guilt and a bunch of excess potential ruining your parade. You can have fun and also help yourself and help other people at the same time by becoming aware, listening to the rustle of the morning stars, which is the voice of unconditional love, and acting and implementing on whatever is coming through clearly when you make that space. So I hope this video is helpful. I want to say thank you so much for being a subscriber to my channel and for hanging out with me for a few minutes today. I hope some of this has been helpful or beneficial to you, and I hope that you'll share if this was any help to you. Reach out to me, join my little Telegram group or the Facebook thing or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Much love, many blessings. Have an awesome day. Peace.